Good afternoon. We resume our lecture today. This is in the series of Six Sigma. The topic today is to begin with a review of quality management systems. That's what we shall begin with. And in that I'll be discussing some concepts, some TQM. Then I'll discuss a little bit of ISO 9000. I'll give you an introduction to a system called QS 9000, which is used in automotive industry. And as we move into this, I shall be bringing up other topics as well, and you'll find that it's a pretty enriching overview of the total process of managing quality. The lecture objectives for today, we begin with our definition of total quality management. Then we discuss a concept called the cost of quality. I introduce ISO 9000 and QS 9000. These are two systems that have come about in the last I will say about 15 years. Then we'll review the tools of TQM. That will be done right off the bat. And as we get into the measurement systems and in service systems, in service industries, that also we shall review a little bit of. And in fact, we have a complete session on service industries, managing quality in service industries. And of course, we top it off with a little glimpse of the Six Sigma system for managing quality. As you realize, on this march of quality, the diagram that I have here, the display that I have here, it displays the years in which various systems have come about. And it began with obviously inspection, then it went to SPC, then it went to design of experiments, then Taguchi methods came along. Then ISO 9000 and TQM, these methods came along. And of course, the most recent one on this front is Six Sigma, where most of the leading companies are trying to get to. That's like where we are. Today's focus is going to be on quality management systems. That's where is going to be our focus today. We begin with a recollection of what quality really is. And quality is the ability of a product or a service to consistently meet or exceed customer expectations. That is how quality has been defined professionally. And that's our goal. A historical summary again, to retrace what we saw in the diagram, is initially we only had a few pieces produced at one time. So in fact, at that point there was one person who had the focus, who was the producer, also he was probably the inspector and the evaluator. And the proximity that was there between the producer and the consumer in those days, that was like how an artisan actually works. Then of course, industrial revolution came along, and it turned out that many people had demand for the same product or the same service. Then long supply chains formed, and the result was that there was a separation between consumers, who are many in number then, and of course producers who had to produce large quantities of products. It was then not possible to operate in the mode in which the artisans worked. It turned out that in that case we needed something that could assure quality en masse for large quantities of products or services. So in fact, at that point, it was also the time when Frederick Taylor came along. It was the turn of the 19th century going to the 20th century. And unskilled labor was what was thought to be the major resource in production. And division of labor also took place, so people got specialized into various things. And then they started doing their pieces. And ultimately, there would be one person who would be doing the quality inspection. Mass production actually was the way when machines were also involved, and there was labor plus there were machines that together were producing these mass-produced jobs. We tried to strive there for uniform quality. This was quite different from the old days when you produced one object at a time, you produced one piece of art at a time or one sculpture at a time, and so on and so forth. It was quite different from that. Here we were mass producing things, and therefore there had to be some control on the process. In fact, it turned out that at that time we lost the understanding of the purpose of quality. We just thought perhaps if we could produce uniform products with uniform quality, that would be good enough. That was the time when Henry Ford started producing his cars, and as you probably know, he got into mass production and he put in some simplified versions of tasks that was assigned to different people who were positioned along the production line, and they were doing their specialized jobs. Sometimes production also incorporated some inspection, but most of the inspection was done right at the end of the production line. That's where most of the quality check was done. The result was people liked these mass-produced stuff, and consumerism was the way in which people started to move. Many people wanted to get the same products, and the demand began to rise, and it was very clear that it was not only price but also quality that people looked at, and that was about the time of, I will say, about 1930s and the 1940s, when mass production became pretty routine, and that was the time when many people, they sought something besides the lowest price, and they did want to have some good quality in them. How did total quality management come along? This was actually a management system that was put together to address all the tasks that affected quality in one way or the other. What does the phrase total mean in total quality management? It actually means the entire organization. The full organization had to be involved somehow in the delivery of quality. We had to make sure it also covered all the processes and all the products, and in fact all aspects of managing, all aspects of delivering the finished product, which would include management, design, control, and make sure you have some customer service after that. This totality had to be covered, and this would be the goal of total quality management. So TQM actually turned out in the 50s and 60s, it was not a flavor of the month. It was not like another wave that would go away after some time. It was not like that, as is true for many management fads that come along as time moves along. In fact, what we wanted to have here was, we wanted to have a long-term perspective in assuring quality. That is something that we wanted to do. And the people who were very fast to adapt to this kind of new idea were the Japanese. They really understood that quality had to be talked about right on top, right at the top, at the senior management level. Then it would gradually come down all the way, right down to the level of the worker. Even the worker would be mindful of what it meant to have good quality products. In fact, it turned out that at that time, because there were many tasks involved and these were understood, these were broken down, there was a checklist prepared, and this checklist was guided by the principles of total quality management. What is the challenge today? Things have really changed from those days of just either the artisan type of production or plain mass production. Things have changed quite a bit from there. Today, actually, quality has emerged as one of the weapons to compete in the global marketplace. You compete to get more sales, you try to raise your profits, you also try to have contracts that are like where people are competing with each other to try to land a contract with you. And also there's competition for jobs that you get with people. In fact, it turns out that is the economic reality today. It's been like that for the past 20 or 25 years. Competition is actually equally challenging now, whether you're offering a service or you're offering a product. In both places, in both sectors, you have a lot of competition today, because there are many buyers and also there are many suppliers now. Therefore, there is this competition. In fact, it turned out people realized that the emphasis on controlling people, that has really not worked very well in this new scenario when there is a lot of competition. And what is emerging now, which is like almost the, it began about 10, 15 years ago. In the 90s, it began as continuing even now, that people are now trying to control quality not just by using one particular system. They use TQM as the foundation. And then they bring in sophisticated techniques such as Six Sigma, for example, design of experiments and Six Sigma and so on. So if we go back and if we review the whole thing today, what we began with was really one piece at a time. Then it became mass production. Then as competition began to rise, people started to excel. People tried to excel in the delivery of quality. It got to a point when just mere TQM would not do. Just the involvement of top managers and the rest of them, it would not do by themselves. You also needed some sophisticated techniques. That's when Six Sigma came along. That's really the thrust of our lecture series. Why is it that quality is so difficult to manage? Is it something that's really complicated? Let's look at the task. You realize this is a factory. What I've got here on the slides is the factory. There's a process there that converts the inputs into some output. Notice all the different factors that could be affecting the system here. These are some of these factors are in your control, and many of these factors, they are not in your control. You do not know when they're going to be active, when they're going to be inactive. You do not know. The result is, when you look at the output, there's a lot of variation. But a consumer cannot live with any kind of output. he's got certain requirements, he's got certain specifications. Those specs, you notice the red bars, you notice the output. On the output side, I've got two bars here. I've got an upper specification limit, which is on this side, and I've got a lower specification limit, which is on this side. This curve here, the bell curve, bell type curve here, that actually shows the variation that is there in the output. It turns out many times the product is off spec on the high side, or the product is off spec on the low side, which actually means it has gone beyond what the customer would find to be acceptable. This is now the variation that is coming out of the plant, and the result is it's resulting from all the different factors that are changing, that are impacting the process. The result is that some of these outputs, they are not going to be acceptable to the customer. Now, if we consider a simple object like a pen, for example, consider a pen. Suppose I start mass producing pens and I do not do good quality control, and I produce these parts. I have the caps, and then of course I've got the body of the pen along with the tip and so on and so forth. And suppose there's a lot of variation in them, a lot of variation in the production of the caps, a lot of variation in the production of the thing there. What will happen? They will not fit together. That would mean either I reject some of the caps or I reject some of the bodies. Without that, I'll not be able to find something that fits together and that is okay for the customer. Which really means I might be producing some caps that I cannot really put into the finished product. That means I'll have to throw them away. It might mean the same way for the body also. The body also may be, in some cases, it may be off spec and I may not be able to use it to produce a finished product. Now, this is a real challenge. What really happens because of this is, if you look at the production, of parts, whether they are within spec or off spec, it turns out the production of the part costs me the same. The body also would cost me the same, whether it's off spec or within spec. Suppose I produce a lot of products, lot of bodies, lot of parts, lot of caps that are off spec. I'll not be able to use them in production, and therefore I'll have to trash them. I'll have to really junk them. They are going to be losses, they're going to be scrap, they're going to be waste. Unfortunately, money is tied up there. Money has gone into it, material has gone into it, labor has gone into it, energy has gone into it. All those things have already cost me some money. And if I'm not able to sell them because the finished product is not acceptable, what will happen to my profits? My profits are going to go down because I'll not be able to sell this defective item as a finished product. That's a big problem with quality assurance. If you do not have quality assurance, you'll probably produce a lot of caps that do not really meet the final specs. You'll produce a lot of bodies that also do not meet the final specs. As a result, you've got a lot of waste, and that waste cannot be really recovered. It's gone now, it's in the trash can. And therefore, it's not going to contribute to my profits. And therefore, my profit is going to hurt. So what I'm seeing here is, if there is poor quality production, it's going to hurt our profit. That's like a pretty big realization. In fact, what are the influencing factors? You again look at the influencing factors. I have the input as influencing factors. I've got the environment as the influencing factor. And of course, I've got the output as the output of the process. If these factors are out of control, most likely my output is also going to be off spec, and I'll not be able to sell them and make some money. What has been the orientation in traditional management? The traditional management has always worked at aiming itself or directing itself to short-term profits. What we have tried to do is, many times we've tried to just watch the quarterly profit. That's all we've done. We've not worried so much about losses and so on and so forth. In the long-term perspective, we've not done that. Also, many companies today, they try to manage themselves in such a way that the stock price in the marketplace stays high or goes up by doing whatever, by manipulating inventories, by manipulating orders, or whatever they have to do to try to make sure that the company's financial picture looks good. They would really put everything else secondary. They would try to make sure their stock price stays high or their short-term profits, they stay high. That's the traditional way of managing a company, for example. In fact, there is no real clear strategic position in many target sectors. That means many companies do not position themselves properly in the competitive situation. In the competitive environment, they really end up with a poor positioning. Many times what we also do is we clamp down on costs and we tolerate high level of waste. And this is like something that's very short-term focused. I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a batch that is being produced, some chemical that is being produced in a reactor. And it turns out that to finish the batch, people will have to work 2 hours overtime. Now suppose somebody is minding his short-term costs. He is going to really worry about that 2 hours of extra overtime that he has to pay. If he worries only about overtime and not that the batch is cooking there which is incomplete at this point in time and it will have to be finished with 2 hours of extra work, he's probably just going to shut down everything and go away. The result is this batch of product will not be finished. It's very possible when I come back tomorrow, when the plant starts working tomorrow, most likely this incomplete batch, the uncooked batch, it will have to be trashed. That's a big cost. What was the trade-off? I saved a little bit of overtime and I ended up paying with a wasted batch completely. I ended up paying a full batch that was wasted only because not enough time was given for it to be completely cooked. Also, we have this orientation in traditional management, which is toward customers. I just say, take it or leave it. In fact, I really do not worry about their satisfaction or the delight that they might have with my products. I just don't do it. I purchase my supplies only at the lowest price, and that is being done still by many companies. And in many cases, managers feel they are the troubleshooters. They have the most experience or the most education and so on and so forth. So they become troubleshooters. In fact, they try to do troubleshooting right on the floor. Now, who is the person who really knows most of the process that is going on? It is not the manager. It is really the person who is running that machine or running that reactor or running that particular equipment. He knows how that particular equipment works. For example, a welder, for example, if he knows where the welding defect can be and because of what the welding defect can be there. Not his supervisor, not his manager, unless they have also worked as a welder, and many times they have not. So it turned out many times people, and these are people at senior positions, they become troubleshooters and they try to come up with armchair solutions which they cook up actually in their chambers. These practices, there was a thinker, his name is Ed Deming. Ed Deming basically said, if your practices are like this, the ones that I've shown here in the bullets here, these practices hurt rather than help. No matter how hard you try, these practices help. What is the alternative? What is the alternative? You need a different perspective, you need a different way of looking at this whole business. Customer satisfaction should really be recognized as the engine for growth. If a company has to grow, its customers have to be satisfied. They have to be delighted. They have to be satisfied more than the kind of satisfaction they derive from a competition, for example. This is a must. And the company must engage, just like it engages profit management, supply management, bunch of others, human resource management. It should also engage experts who are experts in quality management. And that would really mean assessing, recognizing, and meeting true requirements. And these are true customer requirements. And these customers are going to be, some of them are going to be external customers, some are going to be internal customers. Both sets of customers, they have to be satisfied. Their needs and expectations, those have to be understood very well. And what we really have to do is we should try to see if we could satisfy those needs and even excel in the expectations which are there. To win over the customers, we must delight him besides. We must also try to do something that will delight the customer. And this really would go beyond just fully meeting these needs and expectations. This is the modern way of managing quality. So again, to summarize, customer satisfaction really is the engine. If you want growth, you've got to delight your customers. You've got to satisfy, you've got to fully satisfy customers, and then you have to go beyond, because the customer generally has a choice. He could go to a competition. He could go to a different store, a different marketplace. He could pick a different product. Now, what we have to do is you have to obviously make sure that he remembers that he had a delightful experience in dealing with you. Only then he's going to sustain your business. Now, are these new thoughts? Are these something that we are generating by basically saying that these are good things to do? They have come from something like motherhood, for example, or we've read that in some special book, read about these things in special books. It's not like that. It's not as simple as that. Many people, and these were people with a lot of wisdom, a lot of hands-on experience, a lot of theoretical insights into various things, they started thinking about these issues involved in the management of quality. And the first and foremost gentleman there was Edward Deming. He came up with a system called Plan, Do, Check and Act. This was his PDCA cycle, and that process is cyclic, and I'm going to go over this again as I get deep into the lecture. He also came up with 14 points to worry about guiding management to transform the organization. These 14 points are spelled out very, very carefully. These 14 points were giving out, they were giving out as a list, and any place where Deming wanted to go and do a training program, he wanted to make sure that top management heard what he was saying. Joseph Juran, he was the next expert, and he again emphasized certain practices to be top level management practices. He emphasized training, and he also emphasized something called the cost of quality, which I'm going to describe to you in a couple of minutes. Then came Feigenbaum. Feigenbaum really realized that quality control could not be delegated to the quality control department. It could not be done. It could not be delegated to the inspectors. It just could not be done that way. Everybody had to be involved. In fact, the story goes like this, that Feigenbaum had these thoughts, and he was doing his PhD. By the way, he had some thoughts, and he thought perhaps the total organization should be involved in the delivery of quality. The result was this: he wrote up this little treatise, and that was a green little book. It was a pretty fat book. It was about 2 inches thick. He could never get his PhD, but he produced this book that is called TQM, the book on total quality management. And it's the gem of a book. It's still today, it is the foundation for the management of quality. It still today is that way. A lot of Japanese, because the Japanese started to take quality control very seriously in the 50s and 60s. In fact, they hired Deming and Juran to come and do training in Japan. And Deming and Juran, they started working with the top people there, top people in Japan, top managers, industry owners and so on. And they also worked with the engineers in Japan. And many people, many experts in Japan, they also, not only they heard Deming and Juran do their pieces, but they also created some new tools. They created, for example, the quality circle. It's a great way to involve people. And also, one of them was Kaoru Ishikawa. Kaoru came along and he ended up devising these 7 tools. I'm going to be reviewing those 7 tools with you. I'm going to be reviewing that with you. He came up with these 7 tools, which are now called 7 tools of TQM. Then there was a gentleman, his name was Phil Crosby, and he looked at the losses. If you remember the diagram that I had earlier, I had these red zones. These red zones are the losses. What Phil Crosby said was, if you remove these losses, if you remove these parts, which are like the waste, if you remove them altogether, if you create a system that produces stuff that is only totally within specs, you will not have these losses, and the extra effort that you're putting in to try to get things within specification, those extra efforts would be more than compensated by the reduction of losses here. And therefore, Phil Crosby started saying that zero defect is a good target, and quality actually becomes free if you try to produce things that are all within specs. Then there was a Japanese expert. He was a hands-on person. He was an engineer. He's still around, and this is 2009, and Junichi Taguchi is still very much around. He's 87 years old, if I remember right. Today he's 87 years old. He came up with a scheme by which one could produce better designs. Let me tell you about this a little bit. Many times what is thought is that the quality of the finished product is mostly due to the manufacturing process, and then the care we take in inspecting all the little parts and pieces and so on as we put them together. So, in fact, it turns out that in this old belief, old way of thinking, quality is really controlled by the manufacturing process. When you do some post-mortem, if you look at defective items, you pull up a defective item, pull up another defective item, and you start taking them apart, and you do what we call a post-mortem on them, and you go back and look at their defects, and you closely look at the root causes of these. Many times it turns out that the product is not doing a good job because the design is defective. It's not because of the manufacturing process that produced it, perhaps not so well. It's really what I started with, and I started with the design of the product. 2/3 of problems with finished products, they can be traced to some shortcoming in the design. This was recognized by this gentleman. His name is Junichi Taguchi. He's a Japanese expert. He came up with a scheme by which you could produce better designs, and those are called experiments. Those are called orthogonal experiments. Taguchi also gave us an idea of what happens if you do not have quality. In fact, if you do not have performance that is right on target. In fact, I'm going to be showing this to you later on with a slide that's not very far away from here, where I show you the target. I show you the ideal quality characteristic that's going to be the best characteristic as far as the customer is concerned. If I produce anything that is slightly to the left or slightly to the right, in both cases I'm hurting the customer because he wants things right on target. But what am I doing? I'm giving him something that is slightly to the left or slightly to the right. The customer is going to have a consequence because of this variation there. That variation actually causes him a loss. Taguchi was the first person who ended up saying that there is such a thing and I can quantify that for you. That's called the Taguchi quality loss function. And this was the first time it was articulated very clearly that just trying to be within spec is not good enough for us. We have to find that ideal condition, the ideal requirement, which is where we should set the target. We should try to be as consistent as we can in delivering products that meet, that come out performing exactly at the target, as closely as possible. So don't just try to be within specification. Try to find that point which is the target, which may be in the middle, maybe somewhere, and try to deliver it consistently. If you do that, you're doing a good job, and the customer is going to have maximum satisfaction. Another thing that Taguchi came along and said was, many times our products do not perform. Like for example, if you look at these pens are supposed to write on various types of surfaces, and also they are supposed to perform all right if I leave them on the table. And if I do not actually put a cap on this table, you just leave it there, and I've removed the cap and I've left it like that. Now, as you all know that the tip is going to dry up. After some time, the tip is going to dry up. What should really happen is, it should write well when I'm writing it now, and after that if I lay it down for 5 minutes, and then I come back and I pick up the pen again, and I started writing with the pen again, it should continue to write well. From here to here, there's been a 5-minute delay. In that time, the tip of the pen might have dried up. That's going to lead to poor performance, which really means my writing here, the initial writing was okay, but this is not going to be so good. And that is because the product itself is not a robust product. This pen is not a robust product. If it was robust, even after 5 minutes, it would retain its good performance, which is what I had right there. Now, this effect is due to the environment. The environment is basically drying up the tip. The tip probably had some amount of liquid in it, some amount of fluid in it, but as time went by, the tip began to dry out. If I use a solvent that dries out very quickly, then of course this lower line is not going to be so good. A robust design will be such, it will be using a solvent which will sustain its fluidity even after 5 minutes or perhaps even 10 minutes. That's going to be a robust design. This is a secret that Taguchi articulated for us. What is the current situation worldwide? As I already indicated to you, there is more competition worldwide, and there are many people coming up with fiercely competitive strategies. And as you probably all know now, financial systems are going to be fluid. They are going to be behaving in an unpredictable way. Credit crunch is there, and so on and so forth. Customer expectations are increasing. Employee expectations are also increasing. In fact, investors are also expecting more, and they want it quickly. And there is very rapid change in technology. That is also something that is happening worldwide. Now, that is actually making our job to deliver quality more and more challenging. What is it that the customers are looking for? They are looking for clearly performance. This is something they are looking for. They are looking at good aesthetics. They are looking at special features. They are looking at conformance to specification and so on and so forth. They are looking at safety. They are looking at reliability. And besides, they are looking at durability. They are looking at perceived quality. How does it really feel? And they are also looking at this very important thing called service after sale. So in fact, it turns out, like for example, we have a PC here. As you realize, we have a computer here, and many other things are there for which actually we let's say this little piece of device, which is an attachment, which is a mouse which is attached to the computer. Now, it might be all right when I unpack the thing. I take the product apart out of the packet and it performs very well. But the point is this: many times it turns out that is there service available after sale? After some time, when I have some trouble with the product, is there going to be service available for it? This is especially true for autos, special for machines, special for any kind of engineering products that you buy. Many times would like to have some service available after the sale takes place. That's also something customers are looking for. What are some of the contemporary practices? How are people managing quality these days? How are they going to be doing that? As you already are aware, some people are using TQM. Many people go and get registered for ISO 9000, and some people, they get registered for QS 9000. Some people are using some special methods like just-in-time, lean manufacturing, poka-yoke and so on. I'll be giving you a review of a lot of these things. Then of course, many of the leading people in industry, they are going for this Six Sigma program. It's not so much of a human resource program, it's really a business process improvement program. That's what Six Sigma is. So these are various ways people are attacking the marketplace. It is really, why is it that we have to do all this? Because today, in today's world, customers are looking for the total experience. What is this total experience? Imagine you have bought a car, and obviously you'll be concerned about its performance, everything works and so on and so forth. That's the finished product. The finished product must perform as expected. Alongside, I must also have a service component, which is the auto repair. In case something goes wrong, you can read the details here. It actually tells you what are the expectations besides my purchasing the product and making sure that the product works all right. I must also have to me available these service facilities, these services actually. I should have them available. Aesthetics is also something that customers are looking for. For example, the interior design of the car, the soft touch on the leather. And what about the service component of it? Clean work. And when I come into a auto repair shop, for example, there should be a waiting area, and obviously work should be pretty clean. Special features which are probably there in most of the cars, and it turns out special features are provided to you as standard as components of the real product. But what about other things that might go with these special features? For example, their location. Where is the CD player located? Where are the switches located? Where is the telephone located? And also, for example, can I do computer diagnostics? If something goes wrong, can I have a port there where I bring in a device, for example, and I connect up the plug, and it tells me, some device tells me, these are the things that might be wrong with your car. These are the things that might need some replacement of parts or something. Or please have the repairman look at these particular things. That is like something that also should be available. That's something that I'm looking for besides just having those special features. Safety, and again, if it's a vehicle, obviously we're looking at anti-lock brakes, airbags, and so on and so forth for safety. What about safety in the other area, which is like in the service area? This is like an auto repair shop. For safety, they should really have a separate service area. Let's keep looking here. For reliability, we look at the infrequency of breakdown. The car should not break down too often. And reliability on the service side is going to be the work has been done correctly and the vehicle is ready when it was promised. The work is complete. Durability, obviously, useful life in miles. That's like something we should try to look at. And resistance to rust and corrosion. That's also something we'll be looking at in the product. But when it comes to service, the work must hold up over time, which is like the performance should be such that for some time I do not have the same problem. Very recently, I had a radio repaired by a shop, and the repair itself cost me a lot of money. I took it home. After 1 week, it has stopped working. Now, what is the issue here? The issue is this: I'm most dissatisfied because I spent a good bit of money and I had to travel to the shop and so on and so forth and wait for they are getting some parts and so on and so forth. So probably they did a job. They might have done a job, but was it really durable? Was the repair that they did, was it really durable? Probably they changed some component that might have been God knows what. It might have been a used component that they put in there, or maybe the soldering was not done right or something. This is something that I'm also looking for. I'm not only looking for good performance, the moment I take it away from the shop, but also I'm able to enjoy it for the reasonable period of time. Perceived quality, what is the perceived quality? Obviously, when I buy a car, it should be a top-rated car. I should get a Honda or a Toyota. That is something I use as a regular commuting car. And as far as the service is concerned, not only I should get a good brand for the car, the service facility also should be award-winning. It should delight me. And service after sale, this is like handling of complaints or requests. If I request for something, it should be handled, as far as the product is concerned, it should be handled very, very easily, very, very quickly. Again, handling of complaints is something that's also a service component. So what I'm looking for here, if you go back to the top of the page there is a product component for my satisfaction. There's also a service component today for my satisfaction. So today people are looking at the total experience. That's what people are looking at. When they buy something or they recommend something to a friend, they are really talking about the total experience, not just one or two things. What happens if we do not really deliver quality? There are various adverse consequences. And let me give you some of the examples. This is clearly loss of business. That's very possible. If you have poor design or if you've got defective products or services, it can lead to loss of business, quite clearly. There is no real surprise here. That would really happen. Also, many times if we do not deliver quality, for example, if we sell defective tires and stuff like that, or if you really have medicine that is really not, there are some bugs in it and so on and so forth. In fact, there are perhaps undesirable things mixed with the real medicine that you purchased. You may be sued you may be taken to a court. You may be liable for some damages. This may be a damage to life or it may be damage to property. And you watch out, there are a lot of people now, there are these consumer associations and groups and so on. They have become pretty vocal, and rightfully so. If you paid for something, if you had certain expectation, that is what was claimed to be true, and if that is not delivered, the supplier is liable. Productivity, how does it hurt? Again, I go back to that little diagram that I had. I had a little diagram here where I had the bell curve, and I go back to the bell curve there. Notice here, productivity is really production of parts that are within specs. If I have poor quality, perhaps 5, 10, 20% of my output is going to be in this red area. That's not going to be such a good news because that's going to be hurting my productivity. So here's a direct link between poor quality and lack of productivity. So there's a direct link there. And you can all see it's pretty clear that this is something that I also have to worry about. In fact, this is what is going to be hurting my profits. If I do not have productivity due to poor quality, it's going to be hurting my profits. And obviously costs. Poor quality will also increase cost. And I have a special section on this when I'm going to be discussing cost of quality, and you'll notice right away that it is something that we need to worry about. If you look at the cost of manufacturing, if you look at the cost of manufacturing, the cost of mismanaging quality, that means not really responding to customer requirements, customer desires, customer delights and so on and so forth, not really even caring to find out what is it that they want and doing things in my own way because my business is just to produce the widgets. So I produce all these different pens. I don't really care how they function. My job is to mass produce these pens, and lo and behold, hopefully, no one is going to find the defective ones. If somebody does find the defective ones, I can basically ignore them. Probably he's not going to come back. Even if he tells his friends, I'll still have probably plenty of other people who will buy my good pens. So in fact, what I'm doing is I'm ignoring all those people who have some problems with my products. It turns out many times the guys who ended up with my defective products, they are going to be telling their friends, and probably they may even take me to court, and that's going to cost me money. So not only I'm causing a loss to that buyer, I'm also causing a loss to society. It turns out 15 to 30% of manufacturing costs, 15 to 20, the costs are so high that 15 to 30% of manufacturing sales revenue goes into rework and return. That's a huge chunk that goes into rework and return. You might be thinking, I've produced so much and I've sold and made so much money there. You could have made more money because it turns out that a lot of the products that you produced, they did not meet quality and they were probably returned or they were probably scrapped, and that's a real cost to you. 40% of the service effort in many companies that goes into fixing problems because the job was not done right the first time. And there are complaints and there are returns and there are hassles and there are negotiations and there are price reductions and so forth. A lot of other things go on when you produce something that's really not of good quality. Mismanagement also pushes away new customers because the word goes around pretty fast. And of course, there is something pretty big, which is like there are intangible losses that you might not even be aware of. For example, new businesses may not come to you, or your real customer may go away. That's going to shrink your market share. Those things also happen, and there are intangible losses. I have a picture here, and I show here an iceberg. This is an iceberg, and you probably know when a piece of ice floats, just a small part of it, probably 10% is above water. 90% of it is underneath the surface of water. Quality costs are the same way. The visible costs of poor quality, those are in the form of scrap, rework or warranty costs. These are visible to you. Those are the ones that you really think, many times mistakenly, that those are the only costs I have if I have poor quality. But look at these other areas. Conversion efficiency of raw materials. If my quality is poor, I'll probably have to use some extra material to make sure that I have the amount, the quantity and quality that I really desire. Inadequate resource utilization, many times because of quality, machines have to shut down or the production stages they have to stop. My labor is going to be idle, my equipment is going to be idle, and so on and so forth. So, inadequate resource utilization, that's also something that results from poor quality. Excessive use of raw material, that also happens because of poor quality. I know about a grinding operation in a factory where the grinding operation had very poor precision. So, what they had to do was they had to have extra material on the raw material. So, they bought some tubes. They bought some of these tubes and then they turned the tubes and they produced something that was slim enough to fit into the next part that they were going to be producing. These rods or these bars or these tubes, they had extra material on them because the grinding operation itself was not so good. So they had to actually waste a lot of material just to make sure they got the right dimension in the end, because the grinding quality or the performance of the grinding process was not good enough. Then you've got something called the cost of redesign or the cost of inspection. That also is something that's the result of poor quality. Quite easily you can see that. Resolving customer problems, that's also something that's a natural consequence of poor quality. Then lost customers or goodwill, I already mentioned that the bad words, they travel pretty fast. It's very possible that a person who had a pretty bad experience with you is going to probably tell 10 of his friends that please don't go there, don't bother buying that stuff. And so those people, they are not even going to come to you. And it costs a lot of money to land a new customer. You have to do advertising, you have to do promotion, a lot of other stuff. And here you have a live customer and he's going to go away because of poor goodwill. Then of course the other consequence, and this is probably the last in the list that I have here, is high inventory. That also is something that happens because of poor quality. How does this happen? If you got stages of production, I'm just going to draw a little picture here. I'm going to show you. You've got stages of production, and these stages, they basically feed each other, and then I've got the final output there. It turns out if this machine has a breakdown, and breakdown I can always show by red color, so it has some breakdown, it's down for a while. If this breaks down, the supply to this second machine is going to start, so what am I going to do? If this machine is liable to fail, I'm probably going to pile up some inventory here, so that this machine, it can keep drawing from there, it can keep running for a while. Now, what would happen down the road? Again, suppose this machine has poor quality performance and it also breaks down. In that case, again, instead of a smooth flow, I'll have inventory pile up. So if you go to a typical company, you'll find many times there are inventories that are being drawn out of because of poor performance somewhere, or there is inventory piling up because some stage is down. these inventories, they actually cost you money. You better remember that these cost you money. There's money costing here, there's money costing here. This is totally avoidable. If you had perfect quality, the machine is not going to break down. If you had perfect quality, if you had perfect state of repairs and so on, this machine is not going to break down. You won't need this, you also won't need this. That means you won't need this inventory, you also will not need this inventory. And these are going to be pure savings for you. Because anytime you've got inventory, you've got working capital involved, and that's going to cost the company some money. So that's how actually we say, if you've got poor quality, it's going to lead to high inventory. This is something we've got to keep in mind whenever we are talking about quality. So there are these costs, there are these few costs that are visible because they appear in management reports, they appear on a monthly basis, weekly basis perhaps. But there are these hidden costs that are really not visible and we do not know if they are really there. And these are actually far bigger than these visible costs. Many times if you lose a good business, that's a lot of money lost. And that could happen purely because of, not because of good, you did not offer someone a good deal or a good price, but because your quality was poor. Now, where should the responsibility for quality should then spread? It should go all the way from top management to the design department, to purchase department, to production, and so on and so forth. They'd all be there. In fact, production and operations people, they just happen to be one of those in the full chain of the processes that really are involved in delivery of quality. Then of course, you got quality assurance people, you got packaging and shipping people, then you got marketing people, then you got customer service people. Each has a role. Each of these people, they have a role. They have a role to play. Now, what are the different systems that are used to try to manage quality? There's obviously the TQM. TQM has been, recognized to be a very, very important step, an important innovation. In fact, it's a culture. Of course, it's not a program. It's a way you think. It's a way everyone in the company should think. TQM is that mode of thinking. Then, of course, I've got this system called ISO 9000, which is a great way to put your house in order. If you've got various activities that might be affecting the quality of the final product, ISO 9000 is a great way to make sure that you really have everyone following a standard operating procedure. And those procedures are such that they assure quality in the end. That is like something that we really are after in the end. And these procedures, these defined procedures, they can be audited. They can be looked at by an expert and he can really say, yes, you seem to be doing the right things. So you should be doing the right things, you should be doing things right. Both of those should be there. And this is ensured by ISO 9000. The latest, of course, the latest way to try to manage quality is the mode of Six Sigma, where what you really try to do is you try to control two things. One is you try to reduce variability in production. And also if there is any place there is a loss, you try to cut that loss. So Six Sigma has two purposes. Six Sigma obviously is built on a good solid foundation, and that is TQM. So Six Sigma is built on TQM to begin with. Then it's got standard operating procedures and everything else. You've got extensive training. And then you've got this strong emphasis to try to reduce variation, try to reduce variability. That's like something Six Sigma is after. And also what Six Sigma does is it provides you with method by which you can cut losses. So Six Sigma helps you in two ways. One is reduction of losses. The other is reduction of variation. TQM, how will you recognize that TQM is there? If you keep looking at these steps here, you should see top management's direct involvement. That is like something that's mandatory for TQM. Strong customer orientation. Here I'm including both internal and also external customers. Then I use problem solving methods, but these are not ad hoc methods. I use systematic problem solving methods. Then I've got something called company-wide participation. Nobody stands on the sideline when you talk TQM. Everybody pitches in, everybody tries to participate and do his piece. Continuous improvement is the theme. This is like something that Six Sigma is also building on and so on and so forth, but TQM uses that as a theme. But there is something that is missing in TQM. Many times what we have seen is that a company, it does a lot of training and orientation and seminar and so on and so forth, and it tries to instill in the minds of people, this new mindset. Having top people directly involved, having the strong customer orientation, having systematic problem solving methods and so on and so forth. Everyone participates and so on and so forth. All those things are done. But this is only given as a something that is good for you, almost like a motherhood sort of a philosophy. Managers are not motivated always by just plain philosophy. They want to see results, and there is something that is missing in TQM. And what is missing in TQM is going to be quantification of the incentives. That is missing in TQM. This problem, this gap was rectified when people went for Six Sigma. When people went for Six Sigma, at that point people realized that we have to go somewhere that is beyond TQM, and that's when Six Sigma came along. And Six Sigma looks at quantifying the incentives. Before you begin an improvement project that is based on the Six Sigma orientation, you must quantify the incentives beforehand. You should produce something like an ROI. This is something you should try to do. Commitment to quality is quite easy to detect. It shows on the shop floor, it shows everywhere else. And the results are quite apparent. In fact, it turns out material problems are corrected with the suppliers. There is a follow-up. Equipment problems are fixed right then and there as quickly as possible. People are trained. Partnerships are built with suppliers and also with customers, so you share your specs and design requirements and everything else. Continuous improvement is observable. If you go back to the same company after a gap of, like, say, a couple of months, you'll see things done differently. And the biggest sign is, when you have commitment of quality, business begins to grow. That's also something that begins to happen. A quality system, if you have it in place, it helps with competitive positioning. Competitive position actually decides, are you going to be competing on the basis of low price? Are you going to differentiate it by offering people a variety of different products? Is this how you're going to be competing in the marketplace, by providing a variety, which is like how you differentiate your product from competition? Also, in fact, you might be going for niche marketing. Niche marketing basically says that there is some particular product that I only have. I only have this product, nobody else has it. So it's a niche market that I could go after. That's like one way you could differentiate yourself from others. And also you could do it by assessing the strength of your buyers, your suppliers, and your competition. If you could do it all, you could find a way to compete. You could work out your strategy and your tactics and your operational details by doing that. Determining how you're going to be adding value, and how this value, the added value or the cost savings, how they are going to be shared between your suppliers, yourself, and your customer. This is also very important. If you're saving some money by doing some smart things, other people should have the incentive to support you in your mission. And that is done provided you share the saving that you have. Not everything clearly, but some of it should be shared. TQM basically starts by identifying the needs and expectations of the targeted potential customers. So I decide how I want to compete. Then I find the way how I'm going to differentiate my offering from others. I decide whether it will be on the basis of lowest price. That means I've got to have low cost also. Is it going to be a niche market? Am I going to be offering differentiated products? Are there some special strengths that my suppliers have? Are there some special strengths that my buyers have? What about my competition? What is the picture there? Do I have an edge there somewhere? So I decide how I'm going to compete. Then of course I've got to make sure I share the value added. I share the extra money that I make. By doing all these good things, I share the extra money that I make, so that my suppliers, my customers, and everybody else who is trying to support my business, they also have some incentive to support my business. This is very, very important. Getting started, where will you start a mission toward quality? Where will you really start? Start by recognizing your customers. That's really the best place to start. Discover what they need and try to find out what their expectations are. This is a great place to start. Also, set performance standards that will meet performance standards for yourself that meet customer requirements. So performance standards for yourself that meet customer requirements. This is also something where you could really start. Find out what your customers require and find out what your own performance is and recognize that gap. That's also one other place you could really start. You should also start, you could quite easily start by looking at some measure called CPK. CPK is process capability of your conversion systems. If you've got a conversion system, in fact, every company has a conversion system. It takes some input, it converts it into something that the customer really wants, then produces the output. How well I'm converting the input into this output, how capable I am in meeting the final customer requirement. That's a measure of my capability. This is also one place you could do your start in this thing. You got to establish quality management system. Either you go by TQM, or you bring in ISO 9000, or bring in QS 9000, or if you're really good, then you go for Six Sigma. This is like something you got to decide. So again, you could make a start there. Set your quality policy so that it becomes clear to everybody in the company what is it that this company is going after. That's something that's going to motivate people, and this motivation must be provided through leadership. This is also something that we should be able to do. We should be able to do this, and there is really no problem there. And we must equip our people. We must provide the training that we want to be able to do their job. There are various people. I'm not going to be doing everything. If I'm the CEO, I'm not going to be doing from the beginning to the end of the process. I'm not going to be executing those things. So I should equip people to be able to do that. And also I should empower them. This is also something I should be able to do. If a person feels that some action should be taken in the interest of quality, in the interest of customer satisfaction, in the interest of customer delight, they should do it. An example is, in a supermarket, some product was taken home, it was used, it was probably a jam or something, and the user found after some time, after half of the bottle was used, they found they didn't really want to use that any further. So they came back to the store, they offered the bottle back, and they said, we want a refund because we don't really like it. The lady at the service counter, she was empowered to provide the exchange on the spot. She said, ma'am, just leave it here, no problem at all. Please walk in and pick the jar that you want. That's going to be on us, so it's going to be free of charge. This lady, she went in, she did pick up a jar, and she also purchased another piece of larger jar of some jam there. So not only this company was able to build a goodwill, it was also able to materialize an additional sale. This happened because of the special care that they took. This was the empowerment that was so important for the company that they started to do the same thing. They propagated this news, and they started to do the same thing across on pretty well all the service counters. I'll continue with this, and in just a few minutes again, we'll start with the next session. Thank you very much.